Have you ever noticed that the more you confide in family as you age, the more complicated things tend to become? What begins as an effort to be honest, stay close and build deeper connections can slowly spiral into misunderstandings, tension, and even a loss of your personal peace. Many of us over 65 come to this realization not through advice, but through hard-earned experience. And it's not because our families don't love us. In fact, they usually do. But love in families comes wrapped in expectations, old dynamics, deeply rooted emotions, and unspoken roles. When you start putting all your truths on the table, it can open a floodgate of reactions you never expected and may not be ready for. Let me tell you about Harold. He's 79, living in a quiet part of Oregon, surrounded by evergreen trees and a modest retirement community. A former school principal, Harold is thoughtful, organized, and always believed in transparency. When his wife passed away 5 years ago, Harold leaned into his family even more. He thought that if he was open about everything, his feelings, his finances, his future plans, his adult children would feel included, respected, and closer to him. That was the goal. And it came from a good place. He started small, telling them how he was really coping with grief, how lonely the nights felt, how he sometimes skipped meals. His daughter Susan began calling more often. His son Mark flew in from Colorado to help him sort through old files. Encouraged by the response, Harold decided to share even more. He laid out his financial documents on the dining table, his pension income investment accounts, the house deed, and even his burial preferences. He expected gratitude, maybe a few heartfelt moments. Instead, what he got was a steady shift in tone. Subtle at first, Mark suggested downsizing into assisted living. Susan began questioning his spending, wondering aloud whether a trip to visit his college friend in Maine was really necessary. Then came the gentle critiques. Should you be eating out this much, Dad? And that new TV, do you really need it? It didn't take long before Harold noticed the pattern. Every personal purchase came with a follow-up call. Every financial move seemed to invite commentary. And while none of it was cruel, it slowly chipped away at something important, his sense of autonomy. He told me once, sitting in his favorite chair by the window, "I opened the door because I thought they'd see me clearer. But now I feel like they don't trust me to live my own life." This is something many older adults experience. When we share too much too soon, especially about money or health, we invite not just attention, but often interference. Even with the best of intentions, family members can start to see us differently as someone who needs oversight, guidance, or worse, management. And then there are the extended relatives. People who were once on the periphery of your life, cousins, nieces, and grandchildren who suddenly find reasons to visit. Not because they miss your company, but because they've caught wind of what you have. It's uncomfortable to say out loud, but it happens more than we like to admit. That's why I've come to believe this: not every truth needs to be shared. Not because it's a secret, not because it's shameful, but because peace at this stage of life is sacred. You've earned the right to hold things close, to choose when, how, and with whom you share. Harold eventually made some quiet changes. He stopped volunteering his financial details and politely redirected conversations that veered into "what are you doing with your money" territory. He updated his will, privately consulted an attorney, and appointed a trusted friend as power of attorney, someone who respected his boundaries. He said it felt like reclaiming a piece of himself. So in this video, I want to speak directly to those of you who might be feeling what Harold felt. Overexposed, over-advised, a little suffocated by well-meaning love. This isn't about shutting your family out. It's about knowing that your life's details are yours to disclose or not. We're not here to judge or to lecture. We're building a space for seniors who want to move forward with grace, wisdom, and strength. If you've ever left a conversation feeling emotionally drained or found yourself thinking, "I wish I hadn't said so much," then this message is for you. Let's start this journey together. Today, I'll share 5 key things that I've learned from people like Harold and from my own life that are better kept private after 65. Not out of secrecy, but out of self-respect. And the first one, as you might have guessed, is your exact financial situation. We've all heard that being transparent helps avoid confusion. That if you show your family everything now, they won't be surprised later. But what no one tells you is how the dynamics can change overnight. You open the books and suddenly you're not just a parent anymore. You're a financial portfolio, a source of concern, or for some, a potential source of conflict. So consider this before you share every detail. Are you doing it because it feels right to you or because you think it's expected? Protecting your peace isn't selfish. It's a gift you give to yourself, and it might just be the most important legacy you leave behind. And because they love you, they may overreact. Not out of malice, but out of emotion. What feels to you like a passing moment of discomfort is to them a blaring red flag. From that moment on, the way they see you starts to shift. Let me tell you about Eleanor. She's 78 years old, a retired librarian living in Asheville, North Carolina. Widowed for over a decade, Eleanor is the picture of resilience. She takes pride in her independence, cooking her meals, attending community theater, and walking her rescue beagle Pepper every evening. One Monday morning after a busy weekend tending her rose garden and helping organize a book drive, Eleanor met her son Ryan for breakfast at their usual diner. As she stirred cream into her coffee, she casually mentioned, "My knees are breaking after all that lifting." That's all she said. No complaint, no drama, just a comment in passing. But Ryan's face changed instantly. He put down his fork and leaned in with concern. "Are you sure you're okay, Mom? You didn't fall or anything, right?" Before she could answer, he was already listing physical therapists, talking about joint supplements, and suggesting she hire someone for yard work. Eleanor blinked, caught off guard. She appreciated the care, of course. It was touching in a way, but it also made her feel like a porcelain doll. Within days, Ryan called twice daily to check in. He dropped off knee braces she didn't ask for. He even brought over pamphlets for assisted living communities just to look at, he said. Then came the questions. Should you really be driving on your own? Are you still climbing the stairs at night? What if something happens while you're alone? Eleanor, who'd been managing beautifully, began to feel watched, monitored, managed. Her small, lighthearted remark had become a turning point. And in the weeks that followed, she found herself second-guessing what to share, hesitant to bring up even the smallest ache. Because somewhere in Ryan's good intentions, she had lost something important, her sense of being trusted, of being seen as capable. This is the quiet danger of oversharing health concerns, especially the non-serious ones. You're not doing anything wrong by mentioning them. But what you might not realize is how it alters how others view you. One casual comment can spark a wave of interventions, advice, and anxiety that makes you feel smaller than you are. That shift, once it begins, is difficult to undo. Now, don't misunderstand me. If something serious is happening, if you've been diagnosed with a chronic condition or you're experiencing symptoms that truly interfere with your daily life, of course, your family should know. You deserve support. You shouldn't walk through real struggles alone. But every passing pain, every sore muscle, every restless night, those don't need to become family talking points. Because here's the thing, sharing every little health hiccup can create a false narrative. You may feel generally well, but to your family, it starts to sound like you're constantly struggling. And the more they hear that version of your life, the more they begin to treat you like someone who needs protection or worse, supervision. That protective instinct can chip away at your freedom. They mean well, but suddenly they're telling you what to eat, how to rest, when to go to bed, who you should or shouldn't see. And if you resist, they get worried or frustrated or both. You feel like a teenager in your own life again, only this time, there's no rebellion that gives you your power back. And this doesn't just affect your independence, it touches your relationships too. The people closest to you start seeing you through the lens of vulnerability. And that can be exhausting. The energy shifts, the lightness goes. Conversations become filled with worry instead of laughter. You know your body, you've lived in it for nearly 8 decades. You understand what's routine wear and tear and what's a signal that something's wrong. You don't need permission to listen to your own instincts, and you don't need to narrate every sensation to someone else to make it valid. There's also something else we don't talk about enough, your emotional landscape. When health becomes the main topic of conversation, it can start to feel like your world is shrinking, like your life is reduced to doctor visits, medications, and limitations. But you are so much more than that. You are stories and laughter, curiosity and wisdom. You are your books, your walks, your Sunday mornings. You are more than your aches. Don't let those small discomforts rewrite the story of who you are. Now, I'm not saying you should pretend everything is fine. That's not healthy either. You should talk to your doctor. Keep a journal if you want to monitor changes. Take your wellness seriously. But when it comes to family, pause. Ask yourself, am I sharing this to feel closer? Or am I unknowingly giving away my sense of self? Because peace at this stage of life doesn't come from having people hover over you. It comes from trusting yourself, from knowing when to speak up and when to hold something back, not because you're hiding, but because you've earned the wisdom to choose what matters. And let's be clear, that's not denial, that's dignity. As you go forward, consider this. What kind of story are you telling about yourself? Is it one of slow decline or one of quiet strength? Is it a narrative driven by discomfort or by the resilience that's brought you this far? Let your story be full. Let it be balanced. Don't let every minor pain become the headline of your day. Talk about your new recipe, your walk with the dog, the book you just finished. Let those be what defines you. Because the truth is, your family doesn't want to see you struggle either. They love you, but their love, when fed by constant worry, can become overwhelming. You have the power to guide the way they see you by choosing what you share, when, and how. Protect your story. Protect your peace. You've earned both. He could be trying to keep the peace to settle things quietly, but somehow ends up being the one they resent the most when the dust finally settles. Why? Because the moment you speak into a conflict, no matter how gently you become part of it, they stop seeing you as neutral. You're now the one who took a side. And sadly, even if your intentions were pure, that label can linger far longer than the disagreement itself. So what's the better path? Here's what life has taught me. Lessons carved from years of watching families, including my own, ride the waves of tension and love. You don't have to attend every argument you're invited to. Just because there's noise doesn't mean you need to enter the storm. Just because you have an opinion doesn't mean you're required to share it. You can still love your children, your grandchildren, your extended family deeply and fully without becoming the referee in their emotional boxing matches. You can be the steady one, the calm one, the listener, not the fixer. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can say is, I trust you to figure it out. Or even, I don't want to take sides, but I'm here if you need someone to talk to. That's it. No advice, no judging, just space, just grace, because in the end, that's what we all need more of, isn't it? Room to breathe, room to learn. Let me tell you about someone I know. Her name is Janet. She's 77, lives in a quiet town outside Asheville, North Carolina, surrounded by mountains, gardens, and 3 adult kids who love her dearly but don't always love each other. A few years ago, her 2 daughters had a falling out over something that seemed small at the time, a disagreement about who should host Thanksgiving. But as things often go in families, it escalated. Words were said, silence followed, months passed. Janet, like any mother, felt caught in the middle. She wanted to fix it, to call a family meeting, to remind them of how close they used to be. And so one evening, she did just that. She wrote each of them a long email, thoughtful, heartfelt, urging them to talk things through. She reminded them of their childhood bond, their late father's wishes, and how much it would mean to her if they could reconcile. But instead of drawing them together, it pushed them further apart. One daughter felt Janet was favoring the other. The other thought Janet was minimizing her feelings. And suddenly, Janet found herself on the outside. Her calls not returned, her invitations declined. What began as a mother's plea became the spark that reignited the tension. Months later, one of her daughters gently told her mom, I know you meant well, but I just needed you to listen, not solve. And that sentence stuck with her, because Janet realized something painful yet freeing. Her role was never to fix, it was to love, quietly, unconditionally. And from that moment forward, she did exactly that. She stopped asking about the fight. She stopped bringing it up during family dinners. Instead, she focused on being a soft place to land. She made sure every phone call ended in warmth. Every holiday invite came without pressure. And slowly over time, her daughter started to heal, not because of her interference, but because of her silence, her presence, her peace. See, involvement feels helpful in the moment. It scratches that itch we all have to make things better. But real peace, especially in this stage of life, is born not from fixing others, but from protecting our own emotional balance, from choosing stillness over stirring the pot, from knowing which fires are ours to put out and which are simply not. That doesn't make you cold, it makes you wise. And wisdom after 70 is often expressed in silence. You've seen what happens when well-meaning words turn into deep wounds. You've watched small suggestions explode into years of distance. So now your strength is in restraint. Your love is in letting go. You've earned this peace through decades of life loss, parenting, forgiving, and growing. You don't owe anyone your emotional energy just because they're angry. You don't have to be the emotional shock absorber for your family. Your role has evolved. You're not the fixer anymore. You're the foundation, the quiet center, the one they turn to not for solutions, but for safety. And yes, it can be hard. Watching people you love argue knowing you could say something to help takes real strength. But sometimes silence is the kindest answer. Sometimes not taking sides is the bravest position. And sometimes just listening is more healing than 1,000 words. Let's take it even further. Think about the emotional cost of always stepping in. The anxiety, the guilt, the heartbreak when your words are misunderstood. Is it worth it? Or would you rather be remembered as the one who always made people feel safe, heard, and never judged? In the end, peace in your later years isn't about having the perfect family. It's about choosing what's worth your heartbeats, about deciding that not every fire deserves your oxygen, that sometimes loving people means letting them navigate their storms while you remain on the shore a lighthouse, not a lifeboat. So if there's tension in your family right now, take a breath, step back, be kind but firm in your boundaries. And remember what Janet learned sometimes: the best way to love them is to let them find their own way while you protect your calm. And when they're ready, they'll remember who never judged, never lectured, never picked a side. They'll remember who stayed steady. And in that memory, they'll find healing, not because you forced it, but because you made space for it. Now take a moment to reflect. Is there someone in your family right now who's looking for your opinion, your approval, your agreement? Ask yourself, do they need your advice, or do they simply need your peace? The specifics of who will get what, how your estate will be split, and when each person will receive it, those details, while important, can create more heartache than harmony when shared too soon. Take the story of Harold, a 78-year-old retired firefighter living in a small lakeside town in Oregon. Harold had always prided himself on being organized and straightforward. After a mild health scare, he decided it was time to have the talk with his 2 daughters and his son. He laid everything out: his savings, the value of his home, which was to be sold, the old fishing cabin, and even the antique watch he planned to give to his grandson. He explained his intentions carefully, thinking he was doing the responsible thing. At first, his children nodded politely, but within days, the atmosphere began to shift. His eldest daughter, who lived nearby and had been helping him with errands, began asking whether the house could be sold sooner to ease the process. His son, who lived 2 states away and rarely called, suddenly became more involved, texting, often asking questions about the cabin's value and suggesting ways to optimize the inheritance. Meanwhile, his youngest daughter, who had always been quiet and reserved, withdrew even more. Harold could sense her discomfort, but didn't understand why. What had started as a well-meaning attempt to prevent confusion turned into a quiet unraveling of peace. The warmth and ease in their conversations gave way to awkward silences and lingering questions. Harold later told me, "It felt like I stopped being their dad and started being a ledger." And that's exactly the hidden danger. When you open the door too wide on inheritance plans, it invites not just clarity, but commentary on your decisions, your lifestyle, and your right to spend the money you earned. Suddenly, your children may start viewing your choices through a different lens. Why are you going on a trip if the cabin is supposed to stay in the family? Shouldn't you save more for the grandkids instead of remodeling the kitchen? The questions may not be direct. Sometimes it's just a pause in the conversation, a changed expression, a tone that lingers longer than it should, but you feel it, that subtle pressure to justify your life. And it doesn't always come from a bad place. Often it's wrapped in love, concern, and a desire to be prepared. But even the gentlest pressure can chip away at the joy you deserve to feel in this chapter of life. You start second-guessing decisions that once made you happy. You begin to wonder if you need to apologize for buying yourself a new chair, for donating to your favorite cause, or for planning a weekend getaway with old friends. But here's the truth: you don't. You are not just a provider. You are a person who has lived, worked, and earned every right to enjoy the fruits of your labor. You don't owe anyone a preview of your will like it's a movie coming soon. You don't need to defend your choices or explain every penny. Your estate plan should exist, absolutely, but it should exist quietly, legally, and securely. Because what you choose to give and when is not just a financial decision. It's a personal one rooted in years of sacrifice, values, and experience that only you fully understand. And let's not forget something far more important than money: your legacy. It isn't measured by bank statements or square footage. Your real legacy lives in the stories you've told, the hands you've held, the dinners you've cooked, and the kindness you've shown without expecting anything in return. That's what people remember. That's what lasts. So if someone only shows interest in your future once you start talking numbers, it's worth taking a quiet moment to ask yourself, are they valuing me or just what I have? It's not a comfortable question, but it's an essential one. Because your peace matters. Your comfort matters. Your right to live freely, spend joyfully, and plan privately, it all matters. Harold eventually revised his will in private, locking the documents away with a trusted attorney. He didn't tell his children the new details. Instead, he invited them to dinner, laughed with them, and went on planning his next fishing trip. He smiled more. He slept better. He felt like himself again. And when he shared that with me, he said, I gave myself back the right to live. So here's the takeaway I want you to carry with you. Transparency isn't always clarity, and clarity doesn't always bring peace. Sometimes the kindest thing you can do for yourself and for your family is to hold a little bit back. Not out of fear or secrecy, but out of wisdom, out of love, and out of the deep understanding that your golden years are meant to be lived, not negotiated. If this speaks to you, I invite you to take a breath, take a step back, and ask yourself what is truly worth sharing and what is worth keeping quietly sacred, because peace is a decision and you've earned the right to choose it. As I listened to the story of Harold and his well-intentioned but complicated experience with sharing his estate plans, I couldn't help but reflect on how often we, as older adults, feel the need to explain or justify our choices to our families. We want to avoid conflict, to be transparent, to prepare our loved ones. But sometimes in doing so, we unknowingly invite stress, scrutiny, or even quiet resentment. If you're like me, you've probably reached a point in life where peace matters more than praise, and solitude feels more nourishing than approval. And that's why Harold's story struck such a chord. It reminded me that not every truth needs to be announced, and not every detail about our lives has to be shared. Privacy isn't secrecy, it's protection. So my advice is this: create your legal plans quietly and securely with professionals you trust. Let your family know you've made arrangements, but resist the urge to break it all down into pieces for everyone to analyze. Hold sacred what belongs to you. These years are yours, not an audition for how generous or fair you appear. Spend your money the way that brings you joy. Take that vacation buy, that garden bench, donate to that cause. You've earned it, every penny, every peaceful moment. And when your family looks back on your life, let it be the love, laughter, and dignity they remember, not the numbers in a file. Guard your peace as if it's the most precious thing you own, because it is. And remember, wisdom isn't in telling everyone everything, it's in knowing what to hold close and when to simply smile, breathe, and live freely. Thank you for spending this time with us. If this video gave you something to think about, a moment of clarity, or simply reminded you to protect your peace, then we'd love to hear from you. If you felt this message truly spoke to your heart, go ahead and drop the number 9 in the comments below. That simple number tells us this video reached someone who needed it. And if it wasn't quite what you hoped for, we still appreciate you, and we invite you to give us a like so we can continue improving and bringing you thoughtful, helpful content. Either way, your engagement means everything. It helps us grow this community of wise, kind, and mindful seniors who want to live their later years with intention and strength. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. Until next time, take care of your heart, take care of your peace, and keep choosing what matters most.